So, today we are going to talk about the scary but not so scary Appendix 3, which is present in the Green Top Guideline. Green Top Guideline number 52, which deals with the management of major postpartum hemorrhage. Now, this major and massive hemorrhages are those where the blood loss is more than 10 to the power 3 or 1000. So, a three-wheeler you can say. So when the blood loss is like a three-wheeler vehicle, that is 1000 ml, greater than 1000 ml, then it is a major obstetric hemorrhage. Now the initial management for major PPH is something we've already studied in the antepartum hemorrhage section. So the call ABC is what we have to remember. There are people that we have to call, and there are things that we have to first observe and then do as an ABC. So call ABC, let's go through it in a very quick review. This is the call, that is the sister midwife on duty will call the senior midwife on duty and call the obstetrician, call the anesthetist, and put their consultants on alert. Also, the hematologist on duty has to be alerted, as well as the laboratory has to be put on alert. So these are the people who are kept on alert, or the people who are being called, is something that we'd already discussed in the antepartum hemorrhage management, massive APH management. Now if we talk about the ABC, which is the next step, then it is again a revision. We have to first see, and then we have to do something about the ABC. The airway and breathing, once you observe it is there, of course you have to put the patient on 10 liters of oxygen, and once you have done the C evaluation, that is evaluation of circulation, you have to put 14G 2 cannulas, that is one on either hand. And then the left lateral position, of course, will not be of any relevance in the postpartum patient because the baby is already delivered. So this part will not be there when you are managing the postpartum patient. Again, similar to that, you have to keep the patient warm, and the Hartmann solution up to 2 liters, and definitely the crystalloid colloid, the same thing that we discussed in the massive APH management, and of course last but not the least, the main course of management, which is the blood and blood products. This is something we've already known from the management of massive antepartum hemorrhage. Now after this, there are a few special steps that we have to do in the management of a patient with postpartum hemorrhage. Firstly, by far the investigations are concerned and the monitoring, it is more or less very similar for any major obstetric hemorrhage. It is all about the full blood count, the coagulation, the KFTs and LFTs. So this is not something that we don't know. This is easy. We'll be sending all these blood tests, and of course we'll monitor the patient with vitals, ECG, oximeters, bedside hemoglobin as fast as possible, blood products. If the IV lines are not adequate enough, we might have to also need central and arterial lines. This is just like managing any other emergency hemorrhage. And of course, even in the APH video, we know there was a man who was making the record of what was happening. So to make notes and record all the events. And one more thing, that is to estimate the blood loss. Weighing of the swabs. This is important because this helps you quantify to at least get an estimate about the amount of blood loss. So we'll monitor and investigate the patient. From this section, one thing that we have to remember is we have to send the CVC, the coagulation, the KFT, as well as the LFT. This is all that needs to be sent. Now comes the special portion, which is very specific for the management of postpartum hemorrhage, and this is our area of interest for today's discussion. So without wasting any more time, we will move to the mnemonic. Now we will try to remember the drugs in sequence and also the route of administration so that we know what is it which comes after the previous step. So the first step for management, specific management of postpartum hemorrhage is rubbing. Now you can see Aladdin is rubbing this magic lamp. So the first step is rubbing for the magic management of PPH, rubbing of the uterus. Now after you rub the uterus, genie has come out. So now something has gotten empty. What is this empty thing? This is the empty bladder. So the next step after rubbing, you have to ensure the genie has come out. So now ensure there's an empty bladder. After the bladder or the thing is empty, now Aladdin is walking on the road and suddenly he sees something to his surprise, that is an ox meets another ox in a car. So what is this? Oxytocin. Met is ergometrin. So met, again oxytocin infusion, and a car is carboprost. So an ox met another ox in a car. In is for the oxytocin infusion, which comes after giving ergometrin, and car is for carboprost. Now again carboprost has a step 2. Now what happens? Now imagine a car, it is laden with 2 oxes. Of course it will end up with an accident. So the car merged into a tram. So this car, it got so destabilized that it merged into a tram. This again, the second time when we are using the car, it is the intramyometrial giving of carboprost. Merged is for mesoprost and tram is for Trenexa. So very easy to remember the steps. First is rubbing of the magic lamp, that is rubbing of the uterus, emptying the bladder, ox meeting the ox in a car, car merging into an accident, that is merging into a tram which leads to an accident. And since there has been an accident, the next step will happen in the operation theatre. Till now we were doing it outside the operation theatre. Once the tram has been hit, now you have to move the patient to the OT. So the next step happens in the OT. Now let's see what happens in the OT. Now you can see that the tram is badly hit and the tram is injured. Now we have to see to what extent this tram is injured. So either there is local trauma, the car is hitting the tram at this side, so there is trauma only here, or there is global trauma, local, global, or there is some issue with the petrol of the car. So the fluid, the engine, the fluid or the petrol system goes a waste. So it can happen on 3 levels. Now of course it was a massive hit. We were talking about toxins. We were talking about a massive postpartum hemorrhage. So of course the most common trauma that will happen is a global trauma. Most importantly, it's a global trauma. Now if it is a local trauma, what we have to do is we will examine under anesthesia properly and we'll repair. EUA and repair. This is easy. If the fluid has an issue, petrol, that is the clotting, has an issue, then you do the replacement. Now, but if there is a global trauma, you can repair it from in or from out. If you repair it from inside, you have to put something inside, which is the balloon tamponade. See, you are trying to fix the bus from inside. So you've put so much of material inside so that the walls that were falling down, you can fix them nicely and properly. So every time we try to repair a house from inside, if the inside thing doesn't work, only then we try to fix it outside. So similarly, the bus is first tried to fix in from inside. So you put in a tamponade so that the falling pieces get fixed into their respective places. But if this doesn't work, then we have to try out the brace sutures from outside the bus to put the parts of the bus in place. So this is what we will do in global trauma. Local trauma we'll repair, and the fluid trauma we'll do replacement. That is petrol. I'm trying to talk about the clotting factors, the fluid in the system. So you do the replacement as much is required. Now this is something that we were trying to fix in the bus, if it is repairable at all. Now suppose if the fixing doesn't work, then we have to move to the repair. Now, how do you repair? If there is some part, some issue, you cut it, you do something about it. So there is stepwise repair that we have to try, and that repair is stepwise devascularization. Now slowly you try to cut down the blood supply to places where needed. Now you try to do stepwise devascularization. If this sort of pasting and fixing is not possible, slowly you have to cut the blood supply. Okay, this part is, we'll try to make it bloodless. So stepwise you do devascularization. And if you see that it is impossible to repair the bus in any way, even if I take out some parts, if I am doing stepwise devascularization, if it's not working, then of course you have to remove the bus. That is hysterectomy. And now it was an accident. So it's two vehicles have met and hit. So of course people inside, they have to be shifted in the HDU or ICU. So this is some way that you have to somehow memorize the stepwise management of PPH. It's very important what comes after what, and that is why I try to put it this way, so that we know the sequence in which what needs to be done. Now one more thing, wherever interventional radiology is available or uterine artery embolization is available, of course, before going for a hysterectomy, we will attempt a UAE wherever it is possible, wherever it is feasible, wherever it is attainable. So next we'll discuss a little bit more about the doses of the ox and the met and everything. So we all know that since we have been doing active management of labor and this and that, we know that oxytocin that we will be giving initially is 5 units IV. Then met is 0.5. But if again we have to give the ox infusion, then it is almost 8 times units that we will give to the patient. So when we were giving 5 units IV, now we will give 8 times, that is 40 units in 500 ml of normal saline. So 5 unit is IV and 40 units it is in infusion in 500 ml of saline. Now carboprostates are very common dose, but yes, you can remember it like half of metformin, that is 0.25, and you can again this Like this was 8 times. Here we have 8 doses. So carboprost up to 8 doses. Every 15 minutes you can repeat the dose. And intramyometrial is double the dose when you give it intramyometrial. Mesoprost M, if you write another M, it looks like 800 micrograms is what we have to give. Sublingual and Tronexa is 1 gram. So meso is 8, 2M if you write, see it looks like 8. So 800 meso. Sublingually, Tronexa 1 gram, carboprost 0.25, double of it is ergometrin, that is 0.5, and 8 doses of carboprost you can give up to, and every dose has to be 15 minutes apart. And oxytocin, when we give it IV, it is 5, and when we give it as an infusion at 500 ml of normal saline, it is 8 times of what we were giving IV, that is 40 units. So this is I think this is the most important appendix in any GTG possible, because wherever you go in interviews, in exams, in wards, everywhere, the first question which is asked to students and to everybody is the management of PPH. So please by heart this. There is no alternative where you can skip this chart. You have to remember it. Try to simplify it as much as possible so that you can put it in your long-term memory and you don't tend to forget it. Hope I have been able to be successful in making it simple for everybody. So all the best for this chart. This is the most important chart till date, and this is something every person involved with obstetrics has to know. Thank you.